Well, I had some poems in mind that I would read, but I'm going to follow a leading that just arose with the last panel. I'm reading from a really new book from Foothills Press. Like Michael handed over the first copies to me just this morning. And I happen to have in it a poem called Teaching Moby Dick. So I thought maybe this was the right opportunity, although maybe it's the absolutely wrong opportunity because there's people who really know Melville here. But I thought I would try it on you, and you can tell me or maybe not tell me, I don't know. But as Steve mentioned, I've taught at Cayuga Community College for 40 years, and I retired officially a couple of years ago, but I've managed to hang on to a course or two, one of which is American Lit 19th Century Surveys, so I can revisit Moby Dick every year. And let me say, as I describe the course, it's a community college. Community colleges are great institutions. Some of my students have gone on to get PhDs. Most of them don't. It's an introductory course. And I hope you don't mind if I teach just the Norton Anthology selections every year and not the whole thing. That's in the poem. So this comes from years of teaching Moby Dick. Teaching Moby Dick. It's an ill-advised enterprise. Like going after the largest creature that ever lived in small boats with spears. But I do it every year. I do it in the fall, a good time for it, because I can point out the line, whenever it is a damp, drizzly November in my soul, which I love, and I drive it home by saying at the beginning of class, looking out the window at one of central New York's plentiful rainy days, what is that out there? And the students look out, puzzled, and someone might speak up and say, rain? And I say, yes, it's rain, but it's also the damp and drizzly November of your soul, assuming they will recognize the line from our reading, which they don't. At least not the first time. But the first time occurs in late September or early October, and by the time we get to actual November, and I have asked the question 4 or 5 times, most of them do recognize it, though they still aren't especially quick to answer, and probably think I'm nuts to be asking. That young woman in the second row with serious, intense eyes, who smiles when I say something amusing, she'll answer. And by the time the course is over, almost everybody will be able to pick up at least one Melville allusion. And also, I hope, when the time comes, they'll know what is happening to them and have a way to describe it. When their spouse asks, "What's wrong, honey?" they won't have to knock his or her hat off. They can say, "Oh, I don't know, it's just the damp and drizzly November of my soul." That's just the first section. It's an introductory course, so we don't read all of Moby Dick. That would be suicidal anyway. But the Norton Anthology, that wonderful book, has given us enough to get a taste of it. I fill them in on the story, and we read aloud. Mostly I read, but I ask and coax some reading out of them too, and they do it. They have Herman Melville's prose, passing through them, coming out of their mouths, and sometimes it's halting, and sometimes it's terrific. As when some young guy says, "Call me Ishmael," in his own intonation, an interpretation that has never been heard before, and goes on to read loomings with freshness and energy, like the black Ishmael I heard the last time around. We sail or row, and I hope they get it, not only the sense, but the beauty of Melville's magnificent, rolling, complicated sentences, like long strands of rope attached to whales spooling out or taut, and the nearly infinite energy of his language-filled mind. Sentences like, "Yes, as everyone knows, meditation and water are wedded forever," or, "For all his tattooing, he was on the whole a clean, comely-looking cannibal." Better to sleep with a sober cannibal than a drunken Christian.
What was that last line?
Better to sleep with a drunken cannibal than a sober Christian. Or Ahab stood before them with a crucifixion in his face, in all the nameless, regal, overbearing dignity of some mighty woe. Or, just before the final encounter, when Ahab says to Starbuck, "Some ships sail from their ports, and ever after are missing, Starbuck." And Starbuck replies, "Truth, sir, saddest truth." We spend one day on Melville's biography, his father going insane when he was 13, his going to sea, his time spent nervously in paradise, his long decline into obscurity, his bad reviews, the deaths of his sons. And one day on water and Ishmael, that sweet, intelligent, melancholy man. On friendship and tattoos, the conversation flows more quickly when we get into tattoos. And one day on Ahab, his torn body bleeding into his soul. And one day on the whale, on whales and whaling. So I don't skip it. I do a day on that too. Men going to sea for years at a time to hunt Leviathan with spears and ropes. And on the final day, the final battle, I show them Gregory Peck in a fury. And I'm almost in tears as he drives his lance over and over into Moby Dick's bleeding, snowy back. And then we compare Melville's version. Ahab standing on his bone leg in the boat, throwing his final harpoon of words, and then whisked away in an instant. A loop of rope around his neck, gone, never to be seen again. And I read along in rapture and close with the benediction of the epilogue. Ishmael hanging onto the buoyant coffin of his friend. The sharks circling peacefully, the rolling of the calm ocean, captured perfectly in prose. And I say, well, what does it all mean? And there's a long pause, and nobody answers. Who can blame them with a question like that? And I say, well, it seems to say, given what happens to Ahab and what happens to Ishmael, that being tossed out of the boat might be better than vengeance, and that wonder is better than anger, open-mindedness better than obsession, humility better than arrogance, and imagination and a decent melancholy preferable to a mania of wanting to have your own way. Doesn't it? And those thoughts hang in the room, perhaps useful, maybe profound, maybe obvious, maybe simple-minded. But there they are in the air. And at that point, if I've planned it right, time is about up. So I say, okay, see you next time. Don't forget to read Thoreau's Where I Lived and What I Lived For. And we pack up our books and go while the whale swims away into the unknown sea. So, let me know. 3 more minutes. Okay. Okay. 3 more minutes. That was longer than. So this new book it has pictures of my family at a wedding a few years ago here. But they're all archetypes as well. So this is a poem about my step-granddaughter who's from Nepal. It might be 4 minutes. So since this, I think I sense an interest in cross-cultural studies in this gathering here. Easter. Our new 10-year-old Nepali granddaughter came to stay overnight the day before Easter. My wife showed her the art of Easter egg coloring, which she took to with intense 10-year-old craftsmanship, crayoning curved designs on the shells, dipping the eggs into the cups of food coloring, spooning them carefully out of the liquid in their pastel shades of eggshell brightness. As she performed this ritual for the first time, she asked about Easter, old enough to wonder where it came from. So I got out the children's Bible and I read her the story. I didn't want to proselytize her, but we should know about other cultures, right? Especially when we're living in them. And let me tell you, you may not realize the full strangeness of your own religion, whether you believe in it or not, until you try to explain it to someone who knows nothing about it, especially a smart 10-year-old. First, there was Passover, the reason Jesus had gone to the city. Well, God told the angel of death to kill the Egyptian children, but not the Jewish children, whose houses were marked with lamb's blood, so the angel could tell which was which. And soon we got to the cross, the crown of thorns, the nails through his hands and feet, at which she gave a pained, oh, gross, expression. And then the burial in the tomb, and the empty tomb, and the stranger at the door who was an angel, and the resurrection. I'd forgotten how many times Jesus appeared. Now you see him, now you don't. The apostles were understandably confused. All of this she registered with an interested but dubious look. Actually, the thing that perplexed her most was that it was the Jews who wanted Jesus killed, yet Jesus was a Jew himself. Why would they want to kill him? And complicating the matter more, there were some Jewish kids in her class at school, and they didn't seem like they would want to kill Jesus. Then she asked about the Easter bunny and Easter eggs. Where were they in the story? So I pointed out the resemblance between an egg and a tomb. New life, I told her. It's all about new life, springtime, birth. Rabbits have lots of babies. We left it there. The next day, we initiated her into the heart of the mystery. She and her new American cousins hunted Easter eggs in the yard, finding chocolate rabbits hidden in the lilac bushes, chocolate eggs wrapped in bright foil hidden in the forsythia. They raced around, shrieking with excitement, filling their baskets on a green and yellow and blue April day.